Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that the Premier can't have it both ways. He can't blame the former government for bad economic conditions and poor job growth, and then yet say that the poor economic conditions, the crisis that is here in the province right now, with 38,000 people out of work, highest unemployment in the youth categories, highest number of recipients on EI within the decade. He can't have it both ways. He can't blame the former government to say your results were dismal, it's your fault, and then say, well, it's not his fault that the things are so poorly being run here in the province of Nouveau-Brunswick. It lays directly at the feet of the Premier's feet right now. So tell us today, Mr. Speaker, if the Premier can tell us, does he have a plan? Does he have a plan to turn this province around? Is he going to change the policies that have been in place for the last 18 months that have driven this province to the highest unemployment rate, 38,000 people out of work in a decade? Mr. Speaker, has the Premier got a plan to move this province forward?
Time. The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to clarify. In fact, I said the opposite, Mr. Speaker. I said that I'm not blaming the previous government because these challenges that we have, Mr. Speaker, have been developed over decades, over years. And the Canadian economy right now, Mr. Speaker, is not where we want it to be. And we recognize that, Mr. Speaker. It's the member opposite that wants to say that had his government still been in power for an extra 2 weeks, everything would have been solved. And I'd like to correct that because I just don't agree, Mr. Speaker. Now, do we have a plan? Absolutely. Now, the Canadian economy is not where we want it to be, but we're not going to sit on our hands. We're going to remain optimistic. I met with the Chambers of Commerce, and they're optimistic, Mr. Speaker. And the reason why I'm so optimistic after the tour that I did is I believe in New Brunswickers and our collective ability to overcome our challenges and to seize the opportunities before us. And we're going to be a positive partner with the private sector and with community leaders across the province to make sure we have a strong environment and climate for investment, job creation, and economic growth, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier said he had a plan. I would ask him if he could put that plan on the floor of the Legislature, Mr. Speaker, and not just the reorganization of the Economic Planning Department or Economic Development and Invest MB. That's just a reorganization of a department or two. Mr. Speaker, the Premier said he has a plan. We'd welcome even a draft plan that may be not fully developed, but let's have a discussion on it. Put the draft plan on the table. We know that there's one that they've been working on for a while. That's why he hired so many high-priced help. Put the draft plan that he has for the economic development of the province of New Brunswick on the table. Let's discuss it. Let's see if we can get this 38,000 people back to work here in the province of New Brunswick.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, this is the most constructive question and comment that I saw from the Leader of the Opposition. Absolutely, it'll be our pleasure to ensure that we put on the floor of the Legislature, our growth plan. As the member opposite, I'm sure, knows, Mr. Speaker, we have been consulting with New Brunswickers. We've been meeting with industry leaders, community leaders, stakeholders, researchers, experts, and New Brunswickers, Mr. Speaker, to develop a strong plan to ensure we're helping our traditional industries and we're transitioning and preparing for the knowledge economy that is before us, Mr. Speaker. So it'll be my pleasure, absolutely, to ensure that it is going to be presented here on the floor of the Legislature. And another reason why I like the comments and the question of the member opposite this time around, Mr. Speaker, is because he says, well, let's talk about it and let's make sure that we work together to get people working. Well, I think that's fantastic, Mr. Speaker, and that's the best thing I've heard from the Leader of the Opposition. And right now, given the challenges we face as a province, given the challenges the country faces, some nonpartisan cooperation is exactly what we need, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Premier had been listening for the last 18 months, he'd know that we were ready to cooperate long before today. And Mr. Speaker, you know, when the article from Maclean's magazine came out a little while ago, I was really disappointed in some of the light that it shed on New Brunswick, because we feel very, very strongly that the people in the province of New Brunswick are one of our main resources, and we have a lot of faith in those people. I talked to Maclean's magazine, and I wasn't quoted. I guess I put too much of a positive positive spin on where the possibilities are for us to go. And Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that the Premier's office didn't even respond, didn't even grant an interview. And I think that's probably one of the negative issues that caused the article to be so negative, was that the Premier wouldn't even talk to the reporters from Maclean's magazine. So since the Premier's been out of the province, he's been out of the legislature, now we're back in for a very short time, will the Premier commit to making himself available to the media every day after question period so we can get some of the issues answered?